So as entrepreneurs, the challenge I think we have is that we hold on too tightly to tasks, to things that we need to be letting go of and training other people to do. And that makes it really hard to lead.
We can have fun in a week. You can kind of let your hair down in a week. I mean, my hair doesn't go for it, but
Used to.
you should try and figure out how to take a month away.
Yeah, it was like people in the room, collective gasp.
Yeah. Like,
what?
You what?
You want us to take a month? Are you insane? Have you lost your mind? For most of us, it takes a week, 10 days, sometimes even a little bit more to just actually detach our minds from everything that's going on. We are designed as human beings to rest. And if we don't have regular periods of rest and planned rest, the net result is we will end up in burnout.
Welcome to the Half a Bubble Out podcast. I'm Michael Redmond.
And I'm Catherine Redmond.
And today we're going to talk about how important it is to take a vacation and even a 4-week vacation once a year. So let's dive in. Okay, so today we're going to talk about vacations and the fact that we just came off of a 4-week vacation, basically 3.5-week vacation.
So if I look relaxed, I mean, if I'm just like...
If you go to sleep right now...
I'm still adjusting.
And
what is this thing called work?
But I thought the other thing that would be important for us to talk about was not only that it's important to do that and how do you figure it out, but at the same time, I mean, how do you figure it out? How do you organize this? How do you set it up? And how do you go away? What does that look like? How do you even, because so many people go, I can't leave that long. I can't be away from the office that long. I mean, we in the small business world, sometimes we're really entrenched, usually really entrenched in our companies. Mm-hmm. And it takes some thinking and some process. And it's harder when you're even smaller. Like, if you're a one-man shop, you've got to calculate the stuff.
Absolutely.
So let's start actually talking about, do you think it's important? How important do you think it is to have that vacation and that long length of a vacation?
It's funny. The only other time we've taken a vacation that long was a number of years ago. We took a 3-week vacation and that just felt like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, and you know this for your own sake, but the thing about taking a longer vacation is for most of us, it takes a week, 10 days, sometimes even a little bit more to just actually detach our minds from everything that's going on. So if we're going to actually rest and step into that like unplugged place, for most of us, it's going to take a few days to even settle into that. So the great part about having a longer break and planning it out and, making sure all your ducks are in a row, and we'll talk about that, but it really allows you to settle in to a place of actual rest. And having just done it, it isn't theory. Like I found, I stopped thinking about work. Like, what? I stopped thinking about work. I read for fun. I watched stupid shows because I could. Like, it just was very, completely detaching. So I think that the value is there initially just for the actual rest. There are other benefits, too, that maybe we'll touch on later. But the rest was just so good. So good.
Yeah, and it was same for me. But I realized that while I was resting and sleeping and we were traveling and doing all that kind of stuff, because for folks who don't know where we went, because we haven't said, we went to England.
It's a good place.
Which you are still a citizen of.
I am. I am. They'll send me back if I don't do something before November 24th.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you actually did something.
Got to renew that green card.
We saw your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 85 now, saw your cousins. And so we got to spend a week with the cousins. We got to spend almost 2 weeks with mom and 4 or 5 days in London. It was a really great trip.
Super good.
And when we did that, it was just like, it started to become restful and we got settled in within the first week. It took me till day 14 before my mind started getting to the place where I knew I was rested enough. I was curious.
Yeah.
And I started studying and I woke up like, I want to learn about this. I am curious about this. I'm going to look this up. And then it was interesting to me and engaging and then finally getting to do, what I like to do sometimes is just go take pictures and stand and just set up my tripod and wait. I love architectural stuff. So I got to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. We can talk about, actually, that might be worth talking about some of what happened because I was rested.
Yeah.
But if you don't go along on a vacation where you get time, we've seen it before and we've seen it with lots of entrepreneurs, business owners we've worked with. They don't get to actually unwind enough.
Yeah.
Well, and then it doesn't matter if you have family or kids or anything else. We've done it all the years that we've been in business. We've gotten away somewhere. The early years, we had a different strategy than we have in these later years, 21, 22 years later after starting the company. What do you say to somebody who's going, I don't know how to get away from my business to take any time off?
I mean, the first thing I'd say, and always, even though we've done this, I would say this is still like if I point at you, there's three fingers pointing back at me because it's not always a simple thing. But if you have a team, if you're not running the show alone, if you have a team and you're unable to leave, then there's issues with that, right? Because most clients are going to actually understand, I think, as long as you prep them and they know,
Yeah.
and they know they're in good hands.
Yeah.
So as entrepreneurs, the challenge I think we have is that we hold on too tightly to tasks, to things that we need to be letting go of and training other people to do. And that makes it really hard to leave because it feels like, well, then all these things aren't going to get done. So I think that's the hardest part. And yet it's critical because I think what ends up happening, and we're 22 years into this business and 12 years into our other business, if you aren't starting to do that kind of rest
Yeah.
and really being intentional about that, several things are happening. One, you are identifying that you have a company that isn't sustainable unless you're in the middle of it. And that has its own challenges as we think long term about where we're going and what our exit strategies are and those kinds of things. And two, the tendency for entrepreneurs to run towards burnout is really high.
Mm.
And just that sense of I'm tired of treading water, but I can't step away is just a really rough place to be. So I think those are critical factors.
Yeah. Well, and we have always been strong on trying to build a team. Before we had a team, when we were much smaller, we just knew that we had to plan ahead of time, right? We knew that getting away was important for us as a family. When Jenna was, especially when she was little,
Well, and there
um,
had to be Disneyland visits. It just had to happen.
well, it just had to
I
happen.
mean, it had to. It was critical. Not
So,
exactly restful, but critical.
well, and it was, I mean, for me, some people thought we were crazy going to Disneyland, but for me, it was restful because I was disengaging from work and I was re-engaging in something that I liked,
Yeah.
and it was creative and it was fun and it was
Yeah.
rides and all that kind of stuff. And we knew how to pace ourselves for the most part.
We won't judge up the possibility that that's not always been the case. We'll just keep moving
Well,
forward.
the older our daughter has gotten, the harder it is to pace because she's a driver,
Ugh,
and we're gonna be there when it opens, and we're gonna
she
be
can,
there at midnight.
but she can now be by herself if she has to be. So it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. 28 years old can be by herself.
She's all grown up.
We're glad that happened last year. Um, Okay, so there were times to take away, and I'm trying to think of all the different things that would really be difficult for somebody, or the challenges we've seen with folks being able to take time away. I remember the first time we were introduced to the idea of you should try and figure out how to take a month away,
Yeah.
and we'd already taken 3 weeks away.
Yeah. It was like people in the room, collective gasp.
Yeah,
What?
you what?
You want us to take a month? Are you insane? Have you lost your mind? Have you been to my business? Not a
It
chance.
can't happen. It won't do
Right.
it. I remember the first testimonial I heard in that group, in that mastermind, was a guy had gone away and he had a sales team and he had a marketing team and he had a team.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, when I went away, I was glad to be gone. When I got back, they'd had the best month ever and they had it without me.
Dream.
And I'm like, ah, that's nice.
They paid him for that
Right.
testimonial.
Yeah, that's extra. But that whole idea that's one of the things that's driven me, because even when we go away, there's a status quo happening,
Mhm.
but that's the one thing that's not in existence yet for us, is a sales initiative that's going on because we are so involved in the sales
Yeah.
process.
Absolutely. And it does make it hard. So then it's choices that and the mindset of there's going to be enough and we're going to figure it out even if we take this time away. Because there is a really significant mindset shift that has to happen for us to be able to step away from this baby of ours for that length of time and trust that it's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
And that, for me, there's an element of faith involved in that sometimes because I know that not everything is going to get done exactly the way that I would do it. But we have an amazing team and they rise to the occasion. And I think the fact is that they get to live into things and live into levels of performance that sometimes I prevent because I do it myself.
Mhm.
So it's also been an interesting way to discover what we have, right? And to allow them to step in and do things that potentially I could be preventing. So there's a bit of a revelation in that. And there's been times in the past that hasn't always gone perfectly.
Yeah.
And yet, by golly, we're still here. Yeah, so nobody died.
Yeah. There's ups, there's downs.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would say is helpful when you're trying to figure out how to train your team well enough that this works is figure out how to start with small out of the office, get away for a few days,
Mhm.
come back and evaluate. And as you're coaching your people and you're teaching them, the fact that we would travel for work and you and I travel together and we would be out of the office.
Yeah.
I think those were actually helpful teaching moments for our staff and they were teaching moments for us.
Mhm.
It was like, okay, well, we can be gone for 3 days. We can be gone for a whole week
Yeah.
and for a couple of conferences a year. Yes, we're available on the phone periodically, but rarely they need us.
Nope.
And if we're gone and there's an emergency, they are at a place where they're like, we're going to do the best we can to solve it. And there's rarely an emergency per se, unless you designed a company that exists all the time on just this, well, we're extremely reactive and we just wait for fires and some people build their businesses like that. Those are not scalable, those are not valuable unless you actually are fighting fires
I was gonna say, I mean, there
or
are
or
there are
working
things
with
that where
fires.
you have to respond to actual fires
So
because that's your business.
I would say if you were going to back up and go, I like this idea of taking a month off. I can't even imagine taking a month off. What would that look like? I think there's two things to think about. One is what could that possibly mean to you? And let's dive into that a little bit. And what could you do to actually get ready for it? What are the things that are actually required to get for it? Let's talk about the value of it first. What happens if you don't take any vacation? What happens when you get into those cycles where it's like, I haven't taken any time off in months, years,
Yeah.
anything like that?
Burnout.
Yeah.
I mean, just straight up, right? You wear out. And the thing that you started that's supposed to be life-giving and hopefully passion and provision,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose your sense of passion for that because you're just exhausted. So we have to take breaks. We've talked about this multiple times in different venues, whether we talk about um, the once a week day, like a Sabbath rest. We talk about longer rest periods, but we have to rest. Biblically, even the land has to rest
Yeah.
once every 7 years, right? A whole year, right? So that this thing that we are designed as human beings to rest. And if we don't have regular periods of rest and planned rest, the net result is we will end up in burnout. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs live in stage 2 to 3
Absolutely.
of 4 levels of burnout. And we've talked a lot about that. And one of the major antidotes to that is extended rest.
Yeah. When you go away and you take that, well, we have a pattern, right? Our pattern of rest is a minimum of 1 day a week.
Mhm.
Usually we take a weekend and we're not working 6 days a week on often, but we'll work at home. We'll do extra things. But there's 1 day a week where we're like, we're not opening up the computers. We're not
Yeah.
working on clients. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're, we're not doing work, even though it's not in office work, right?
Yeah.
That's a pattern. Then this whole idea of how do you not just take one vacation a year and then work 11 months a year, but how do you break things up, make sure that you're taking a few 4 day weekends here
Mhm.
and there? How do you take holidays? Even when you and I travel, we decided a long time ago, right? Because when you were in corporate before we started this company,
Mm.
the company said you will take the red eye out. You will get up at 4 in the morning to catch a flight.
Yep.
You'll go out there, and when you're done, you'll get on a plane and you'll come back. If for
Ah, the good old days.
if for some chance you can't catch a flight, you'll be coming back immediately the next morning, which is fine. But that was the only reason you got to stay in a hotel is if you had meetings over 2 days, or you
Yeah.
couldn't catch a flight
Yeah.
back. Well,
I was in my 30s then, and I hated it even then, but at least I could do it physically.
but even though you could, it took a lot out of
It did.
you.
It did.
And when we were thinking about that, it was like, okay, that's dumb. Let's invest a little extra money and a little extra time.
Mhm.
And so we invariably go out the night before and we spend a night. So we add oftentimes 2 nights to the trip,
Yeah.
sometimes just one. But that slowing down the rhythm and the pace
Mhm.
makes for our ability to have greater endurance way more. And I think it was one of the things that helped us get through the really challenging early days of the company, and then even the Great Recession, and going through some of those times where you're like, how do you even have enough energy or emotional stamina to put up with all these different changes?
Mhm.
Right. Great story right now is a client that we have that has the microbrewery.
Mm.
We've done a little bit of work with them, but they came to us in crisis
Yeah.
7 years in, and there's a good chance they won't make it. And
Yeah.
they're exhausted, wore out, fried, and discouraged.
Yeah.
Took a bunch of their retirement money and put into it. And they're just like, this sucks. And it's really sad.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've had a break in several years, maybe over COVID, but that was a stressful break. That wasn't really a planned vacation.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
get these places where the moments of business are just difficult. How do you get away just to restore enough? Can you get enough sleep at night? For us, we've done a lot of 2 week vacations.
Mhm.
I think when we first started learning to do a 2 week vacation at one time, that was the first big breakthrough of being on a vacation and actually starting to rest.
Yeah.
Because I learned that we can have fun in a week. You can kind of let your hair down in a week. I mean, my hair doesn't go for it, but
Used to.
but you don't fully unwind.
Mhm.
I was just talking to somebody a couple of days ago about that. They're like, yeah, it's not till probably the fourth day that I actually start to relax and feel like the tension is starting to get out of my body.
Mhm.
And so you think about that and you go, okay, one of the best advices if you can't take off a month is, and you're not even taking, you know, if you're not taking more than a week at a time, is to take a 2 week stint and give
Start
yourself
there.
a long couple of long weekends spread out through the year. But do this 2 weeks will radically change your perspective if you've never been gone for more than a week,
Yeah.
7 8
And then
days.
the trick is actually unplugging, right? Not checking your email every
Yeah.
day and not, I mean, just being like, I am going to be out.
Yeah.
And unless somebody's bleeding
Yeah.
or something is on fire, I'm like, don't text me, don't email me.
Yeah.
The out of office email is on. You know what? It's like, this is what I'm doing, and here's who you talk to. And I think that that level of self-discipline is also really important. Just the choice to unplug and
Yeah.
to trust that it's not all going to just implode because you're not there for a few days.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So the things you need to do to get ready for this, you absolutely 100% need to make sure that you've thought about it and planned ahead of time. You can't
mhm.
just pull the trigger and bail.
Nope.
That's not helpful to anybody, especially if you haven't trained your people to do this. Second, you don't just walk out and go, okay, I've been taking care of everything. I'm going to drop it in your hands, and wishful thinking that you can just do that and walk away and you won't come back to a mess.
Right.
Sometimes people go, well, I just gave it to them. I'm like, well, did you prep them? Did you train them? Did you test them and make sure that you had the right people on the bus, per se, in your company? And had they been working on having those kinds of roles and responsibilities as time went on, so they could solve those problems? Do you have a partner in the business? If you have a partner in the business, it makes it a lot easier.
Mhm.
All
When
right.
your partner is you, it
Yeah.
makes it not easy
It's not
because
easy
I have
because
to take you with me.
I can't.
It's weird.
Well, yeah, that's important.
We're weird. We travel together.
Imagine that,
I
married
know.
couples
You know
traveling
what?
together.
There are some that don't. They take like independent vacations. It's weird
Yeah, I don't get that.
to me.
I don't
I
understand that at
if,
all.
if you take independent vacations, I'm not saying you're weird. I'm saying it's weird to me. Just to clarify.
Yes. Sure, I'll agree with that. Um, so you've got to prep your team. You got to make sure that you've coached them along the way. You've done some practice leaves for a few days
Mhm.
to see what's going on and make sure they just understand the roles and responsibilities of the business.
Yeah.
If you're running any kind of successful business, you probably, and you have any kind of stable staff, you probably have a couple of people, if not more, on the team that are really, really capable.
Mhm.
And if they're not performing at their capability, it's because possibly you're holding them back. You're
Possibly.
not letting things go. You're a control freak, and you need to, and or you're not going to get the breaks.
Yeah.
You want to be ultimately running your company in a way that ultimately designed. If we way out, if we could, and we talk about this all the time. If you could design your company to where you could sell it, it's ready to go on the market. It's got good returns. It's got good revenue. It's a very healthy system. Then odds are that you can keep it all day long and it's going to run super efficiently and super effectively. And even though that's an ideal, because
Mhm.
you can't just turn around, you never turn around and just sell things. You got to clean it up and all that stuff. But thinking about that, I want to build a company so that I could sell it if we needed to sell it,
Mhm.
or it's running so smooth that it's yielding stuff. If you're a one-man shop or a small company and you're important to the revenue, you just need to actually put it in your budget and plan
Yeah.
so that you're making all of your money in, 50 weeks a year or 11 months a year or something like that. If you can think about it like that and prep so that when you leave, there's also the funds because your revenue goes down.
Yeah.
We're so involved in the company still that our revenue dips,
Mhm.
but it's not tragic. It's just, a lot of that extra cream on the top is not there because of us, and we can see it and we come back. But a month isn't the end of the world for us.
Nope.
And we have money in savings and we have those kinds of funds
Yep.
so that if we need to, we can pull from it.
Yeah.
But we've gone away in other times and it's been great. It's just sometimes it's the season you're in.
Mhm.
So prepping your people, prepping your budget, thinking about it and planning it and get it on the calendar.
Yeah.
And just tell
Pre-calendar.
tell tell your customers, tell your vendors, tell everybody. Now, different businesses are going to do this differently. We have uh so our hay business
Mhm.
is retail sales online.
Yep.
If that's the case,
Mm,
that place has
probably not
enough
announcing it.
people. We're not shutting it down and we don't need to because they don't need to know we're there. We're there. We have a fulfillment engine. It's going. The marketing is happening. Sales are coming in. Orders are coming in. And it works really well when our partner over there goes away for his vacations or trips or anything like that. The staff's great. The sales are great. They're continuing to happen. You can't just take your hands off the wheel completely, or the staff can't. For us, our staff is here, but we're engaged in our clients and we have regular client meetings. You just got to tell them.
Yeah.
I think there's another place where you just have to make a decision. So sometimes you just say, I'm going to turn everything off.
Mm.
I always think about the teriyaki bowl shop near our old house.
Mm.
It's two doors down from our dry cleaners for those listening who don't know. And so I would see it periodically, and all of a sudden, one day I was walking by it, and there's a sign on the door. Door's locked. The place is dark, and you're going, "This is amazing." There was a note that said, "We are closed this week. We are taking the first vacation we've ever taken."
Mm. Yep.
I remember that when I came home to tell you
Yep.
about it. I was so excited about that because that teriyaki bowl place had probably been there 15 years,
Yeah.
maybe 20.
Yeah.
And here's this family who had never taken a vacation and they were shutting the whole place down for a week.
That's
And
awesome.
I know it impacted their cash flow to some extent, but
But it probably saved their sanity.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there was a nail salon I used to go to that was a Vietnamese family, and it was husband and wife owned,
Oh,
and they shut down for a month every year to go
oh
back to
yeah, yeah.
Vietnam. and they just did it. Like, we're just closing. So they must have done that planning because they're thriving, they're doing well, they're,
Yeah.
continuing to serve customers, but they just like, this is what we do.
And the big fear is nobody will come back.
Right.
They will get mad. They will be frustrated, everything else. And that teriyaki bowl place did not suffer.
Nope.
And that nail salon did not
Still
suffer.
thriving. Yep.
It was still hard to get into. And we have clients that are like, it's fine. We get it.
Yeah.
And they're fine.
They usually are just excited for us.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that sounds amazing.
So I'll tell one last story just as we wrap up here. But I think this is valuable. It goes back to me taking pictures. So often we get busy and there's a part of our personality that just kind of goes dormant. I don't know if it shuts down completely, but there's parts of us that when we're extra rested, people go, wow, you can say it to anybody. You're laughing more, you're more engaged, you look rested, you feel rested. Well, there's behaviors that go with that too.
Sure.
And I'm a strong extrovert. I have lots of words.
Indeed you do. So many.
And I like to have conversations.
Mhm.
But when I'm on a regular basis, pretty much now, when I'm tired and work is just everything's going well, I don't have a lot of extra energy to engage with people in other environments outside of work.
Are you ducking in Costco? Is that what I'm hearing? You're just
I'm ducking
turning corners and going
in Costco, and I'm ducking in the grocery store.
Back up.
I will admit, in the last 24 hours, I had to go to the grocery store and I saw somebody and I'm like, I don't remember their name. I'm just going to walk by them. And I walked right by them and they didn't know who I was. And that was great. But in general, it's like, you see somebody, you say hi and talk and all this kind of stuff. But I just like to talk to people, and especially if they're friendly and engaged. And it was about 18 days into our vacation. And I was standing in front of this giant cathedral in your hometown. And
Best.
I went out. The weather had been horrible, to describe it for everybody. And I'd been waiting for great weather.
Northern England at its best.
So we're looking for great weather, which is usually this time of year. It wasn't. And finally we had a day with blue skies and some puffy clouds. And
it's beautiful.
And, and the Minster this year, the cathedral, it had scaffolding all over parts of it that I wanted to shoot. And I was frustrated with that.
It's always going to be somewhere.
Always going to be somewhere. I just didn't want it there. And I set up my tripod, and it's, for some reason, I don't always just sit around very well. And I'm usually busy doing something or thinking about something. And I set up my tripod and I put a camera on it and I get real quiet. And I just get still. And because I'm waiting for the light, I'm waiting for the shot. I'm waiting, especially if we're in another city or something, I'm waiting for people to move or disappear. And I stood there for almost 4 hours.
Yep.
Just looking for it. It's like my own place of meditation. But people started coming by. And I knew I was really rested because I had 5 or 6 conversations with total strangers.
Bob from Denver.
I met Bob from Denver. As soon as I told him I used to live near Denver, he told me that he didn't live in Denver. He just tells people it's Denver.
I live in Westminster, but nobody knows where that is.
It's a suburb.
I know where that is.
I met a guy who was British and his niece from Texas who's studying animal science, her master's degree in animal science. Down there south of Austin. I met Phil and his son Tim. And Tim is from Wexford.
Wrexham,
not Wexford.
I mean, Wexford would be fine,
Wrong
but
island.
Wrexham.
Wrexham.
Welcome to Wrexham. Come on.
So, and I'm like, all of a sudden, and I wanted to go to Wrexham this trip, but we didn't go. And he's like, it was a good thing you didn't go. The city's, there's nothing there yet. It's still a pretty depressed city. And so I met him and his dad, Phil, and then turns out we had multiple things in common. They were both British, but Phil used to work in Silicon Valley around the time when we did, and he knew all the players and all the, all kinds of stuff. We sat there for an hour talking. Now that may sound like hell to many people listening right now.
People are like,
I don't want to do that. But what I'm saying is I got to be so rested. I got to be creative. I got to do something I'm liking. I got to be in a beautiful place, but I had to unwind enough. I had to go somewhere. I had to make some decisions. I had to unwind. And then all of a sudden I just spontaneously, people would talk to me and I would talk back, and I didn't mind having the conversation because I just wasn't weighed down with all of the stress and craziness. And by the 3 days before we left, I was ready to go home,
Mhm.
and I was missing certain parts of home.
The quiet.
The
The
quiet.
quiet of our backyard
Yeah.
versus
We live
the
at
construction
we have
of
a quiet
downtown
house
wherever.
in all the cities we were at. It was crazy. But
Uh,
that was, I think, an epitome of
mhm.
what does it look like for me when I start to unwind, that I can just, it feels good. I can have a conversation with somebody. I'm not trying to duck anything. I
Yeah,
get to do some of my hobbies. And whatever that is for anybody who's listening, it's important to be able to get back to those things
it
and
is.
find those things, because you need to figure out how to have a regular habit of restoration in. And I think after doing it, if you could aim for taking a full 4 months off from your
4
business,
months now.
I mean,
Wow.
4 weeks,
Phew, he has just amplified and up to the ante,
if you
folks. I'm
could ta
taking 4 months off next year.
if you could take
I'm
11
in.
months off, it would be amazing. It's almost retired, but
Oh,
it's not
golly.
quite.
Oh, golly.
Anyway, 4 weeks off, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do it. You just have to think through it.
Yeah. I'm going to say two more things. First of
Sure.
all, one of the funniest parts about that last story was that guy, about 45 minutes, 50 minutes into that conversation, turned out that he actually knew my mom and was at her birthday party 5 years ago that we were
Her
at
80th
in the
birthday
same
party.
room. And it took them 45, 50 minutes into the conversation to discover that. So that was a delightful, like, what a small world this is. The
Oh,
other
by the way, I got pictures with 2 of these
Yeah,
strangers,
yeah, you're
selfies for them.
connected, and I mean,
Yeah.
you guys, you're buds. The other thing I will say is that regardless of where you go, whether you're going, your thing is the beach, the ocean, whether it's Europe, whether it's the mountains. Another thing that I think is really vital about just changing location is the opportunity to kind of re-engage wonder and awe,
Yeah.
right? So the cathedral, obviously for me, it's my happy place, but it's also a place where I just go, "Oh, I'm so small,"
Yeah.
right? It's a similar feeling at the ocean where you just there's a perspective that comes, and the more that we're able to step into that awe and wonder, just that does amazing things for just our mental state, our health, our all of those things. So just to say, it is good to change locations.
Totally agreed.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason why you want to have 100%, you want to have a vacation and plan the vacations, especially as a business owner, an entrepreneur, a business leader. If you work for another company, you've probably got vacation time already. But if you own the company, it's hard to take that vacation. And we just want to encourage you, take the vacation when you can, because you will reap the benefits by multiples afterwards.